Taoiseach, I want to talk a bit about teachers, schools and schools remaining closed or open. I think there's a bit of a war on teachers at the moment, both in elements of the media and indeed some of the political statements that have been made. It's like the schools are safe, get over yourself, get in there and do your work. But there is a huge amount of worry on behalf of teachers, and I raised with you recently the question of the forgotten families, the hundreds of children who stay at home because they have vulnerable siblings or parents. Another very worrying thing was brought to my attention yesterday by email. I'm a primary school teacher, I'm 28 weeks pregnant and have been advised by my doctor to go on health and safety leave as I'm unable to socially distance at school. My doctor got this advice from the Royal College of Obstetricians, Gynaecologists, the Royal College of Midwives and the Faculty of Occupational Medicine. In the produced document, they state that women who are 28 weeks pregnant and beyond are at an increased risk of becoming severely ill should they contract COVID-19 or indeed any other virus. Therefore, the clinical advice given is particularly important for women who are 28 weeks and beyond. I have been denied health and safety leave by Medmark, a private company engaged by the HSE in occupational health care for teachers. They state they are taking their advice from the HSE. Why is the HSE advising against the professional advice of these organisations? 28 weeks and beyond, if you're very vulnerable of risk of contracting viruses and getting seriously ill as a result, will the Taoiseach consider looking at this? The Taoiseach, future Taoiseach, former Taoiseach, Taoiseach, will you consider looking at this and trying to get the HSE advice changed in line with best practice? Now, when I started by saying there's a war on workers, a war on teachers, I think that is absolutely true. But also there's a huge amount of worry among teachers, principals and others about the situation in their schools. In the first instance, the sort of identity of what are close contacts is very different for schools than it is for the rest of society. And we're constantly being told that schools are safe. Get in there and work them and keep them open. We all want to keep the schools open, but we need to keep them open safely. They're not magical places. They can't do it all by themselves. And yesterday, when Richard Boyd Barrett raised this issue, Micheál Martin said to him, look at Denmark, and we'd love to be like Denmark. They have a pupil-teacher ratio of about 10 to 1. We have one of the highest in the European Union. And we also have 80% of our schools who are not properly ventilated, and we don't have the ability to socially distance. So I think it's a huge issue, and I think we need to calm down on the attack on teachers, because it's not just teachers, it's also parents and indeed the children I mentioned. So I'd like you to address those issues, please.
Thanks, Deputy. Just in relation to Denmark, which is a fabulous country, a very well-run country and has great public services, it does have a significantly higher incidence of the virus than Ireland does now, and I think we need to bear that in mind, notwithstanding the numbers in the last couple of days. Plateauing rather than continuing to fall. We're the third lowest now in Europe. Only Iceland and Finland have a lower incidence of the virus than we do, and that is testimony to the work that Irish people and Irish society have done in reducing the transmission of the virus. As concerns teachers, Deputy, I think teachers have done a fabulous job. They've done an amazing job, in my view, in the past couple of months, getting schools open, keeping them open, and also dealing with cases and clusters as they arise. And I really want to pay tribute to them for doing that work in the past couple of weeks and couple of months. And I've visited a couple of schools in the last few weeks, and it's been really impressive the way that our teachers and our boards of management have created a new normal environment for kids in which to get their education. And I think we owe them a real debt of gratitude. Schools are safe places for teachers and for children. In a pandemic, nowhere is 100% safe. Not even your own home is 100% safe. But as far as things go, schools are among the safest places in which to be during this pandemic, and that applies to the staff as well as the students. And I think we need to reassure people of that. In relation to the particular matter that you raised around the HSE's advice, I'd be happy to look into that further. I don't know the details. I would have thought that if somebody is advised by their doctor to take health and safety leave or to take sick leave during a pregnancy, that would be enough. Certainly when I was practicing as a GP, and if a pregnant woman came into my surgery and I felt that it was appropriate for her to take health and safety leave or take sick leave, I would certify that, and I've never come across it being second guessed by somebody else. If you want to pass on some more details about that to me, I'd happy to have it explored and see what the situation is.
I'm happy to pass on the details, and I did pass on information to you about the forgotten families. I think it was a week or two ago, but I've heard nothing back. You did say you'd check it out, what's happening with these 500 children who cannot access online services from the schools because they're not supposed to be at home according to the official policy of the HSE and the Department of Education. But in fact, they're staying at home because they don't want to bring the virus back to vulnerable siblings or parents, and that's a big issue. And I think that alone indicates that there's a problem in schools. The example I've given you this morning indicates that there's a problem with how Medmark are determining whether it's safe or not for teachers to go in, and that probably stems from the HSE's advice. But there is no doubt that principals and teachers throughout this country and parents are worried about how contact tracing and what's determined as a close contact in the schools is sufficiently being met. So I think we have to look at it. We have to look at the ratio of children to teachers, and we have to look at the question of ventilation in our schools. And I know of one school in Mayo where a rep for the union kicked up about the ventilation. Within days, they put the investment in and they were able to improve it. That should be done in 80% of our schools, and the question of sick leave for teachers has to be addressed.
Thank you. Taoiseach.
Thanks, Deputy. In relation to the forgotten families, I received what you sent me, and I'm engaging with Minister Foley to see if we can find a solution, because I do think it is important for children who can't attend school for health reasons to be provided for in some way, perhaps through an online access system or something like that. And I did receive that, and I'm going to follow up on it with Minister Foley. In relation to schools, you know, a lot has been put in place to help schools manage the pandemic. Not just all the extra funding and extra staffing, but also a dedicated phone line that principals can use, operates even at weekends, dedicated school teams that are there to assist schools from a public health point of view, and as well as that, there is fast tracking of testing in some cases as well. So I think a lot has been done to make our schools as safe as they possibly can be made during this pandemic, and that should be acknowledged. In terms of ventilation, I think you make a valid point. We know that in this pandemic, outdoors is safer than indoors, and a well-ventilated environment is safer than a poorly ventilated environment, and that's only common sense. And I do think we will have to look at our public buildings and see what we can do to improve ventilation where possible. That mightn't always be possible, but where possible we should try and do so.
Thank you, Taoiseach. Thank you very much.